Drivers talk about the woman at mile marker 42, a silent figure who appears on the roadside at 2 a.m. But the real nightmare isn't seeing her there. It's realizing she was already sitting in your back seat, long before you noticed her. The motorway at night was the quietest place Emma had ever known. Empty lanes, damp wind, and a darkness that felt like it had a pulse. She was driving from Leeds to Whitby, expecting a peaceful trip. Instead, she noticed something wrong almost as soon as she passed mile marker 38. The radio kept fizzing with static, and the headlights dimmed even though the battery was new. By mile marker 40, every shadow on the road felt stretched, distorted. The night didn't look normal, felt thick like fog with weight. At mile marker 42, Emma saw the first impossible thing. A woman stood on the hard shoulder, facing away from the road. Thin, unmoving, wearing a pale gray coat despite the cold wind. Her hair hung straight down, covering her face entirely. She didn't lift a thumb for help, didn't turn, didn't react to Emma's car passing her at all. Emma slowed down automatically. Something inside her insisted, "Stop the car." But at the same moment, something far deeper inside her whispered, "Don't you dare." Emma kept driving. For 5 seconds, she felt safe. On the 6th second, the woman appeared again at the next mile marker, mile 43, standing in the exact same position. Emma slammed the brakes so hard that the tires screamed. There was no possible way the woman could have reached that spot unless she could run at the speed of a car or teleport. Emma sat frozen behind the wheel, her breath fogging the cold air inside the car. Her headlights were pointed straight at the woman's gray figure. The woman slowly tilted her head, not turning fully, just tilting, the slightest movement. But it felt like the entire motorway tilted with her. Emma locked the doors, checking them twice. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She looked down for her phone. When she looked back up, the woman was standing right beside her window. Emma didn't scream. She couldn't. Her throat locked. The woman's face was still hidden behind that long wet hair. She didn't move, didn't knock, didn't breathe, just stood there. Emma floored the accelerator. For the next 10 minutes, Emma drove as fast as she ever had in her life. The dark motorway felt endless. The radio screamed static. The dashboard lights flickered. The air in the car felt heavy, freezing. At mile marker 51, Emma lifted her eyes to the rearview mirror. The woman was sitting in the back seat. Her hair had parted just enough to reveal part of a cheek. Pale, cracked skin, like it hadn't seen daylight in years. Her hands rested neatly on her lap as if she'd always belonged there. Emma didn't remember pulling over. She only realized she was no longer moving when she heard knuckles tapping from the inside of her boot. Slow, steady tapping. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Emma stumbled out of the car and ran down the motorway, crying, barefoot, shaking. She didn't stop until she reached a roadside phone box. The police found her an hour later. The car was still there. The boot was open. Inside was a woman's gray coat, wet, cold, and decades out of fashion. But no sign of the woman herself. Emma never drove at night again. And every now and then, on the quietest nights, she swears she hears tapping inside her walls. The Marrowgate Hotel had been abandoned for 20 years, left rotting near the docks in Liverpool. Lucy, an urban exploration YouTuber, wanted to film inside for a Halloween special. She brought 2 torches, extra batteries, and a plan to stay only 30 minutes. But the first step she took inside the lobby told her she'd made a mistake. The air wasn't just stale. It moved around her, like something was brushing past her legs. She checked her torch. It flickered, then steadied. She pressed on. The carpet was soft with mold. The wallpaper drooped like peeling skin. Doors in the corridor stood partly open as if waiting for someone to pass by. At the end of the corridor, above dust-covered tiles, a metal sign read, "Room 214, last checked out, 3:17 a.m. The numbers looked freshly carved, not decayed like the rest of the hotel. Lucy felt a strange pull, as if the hotel wanted her to go there. Against her better judgment, she obeyed. Room 214's door was closed. Lucy filmed the brass handle as she turned it. The door opened without resistance. The room inside should have been empty, but it wasn't. The single bed had clean white sheets, crisp and tucked as though housekeeping had just finished. A suitcase sat in the corner, zipped but bulging slightly. A coat hung neatly in the wardrobe. Shoes rested beside the bed, polished, aligned. Everything looked prepared for someone who had stepped out only moments earlier. Lucy whispered to herself, "Someone lives here now?" She backed away, but as she did, the bathroom door inside the room creaked open. A man stepped out. Tall, gray suit, pale face that seemed stretched too tightly across his skull. His eyes were the strangest part. They were wide, unblinking, reflecting Lucy's torchlight like glass. "Checkout isn't until dawn," he said calmly. Lucy's breath left her lungs. He shouldn't be here. The building had no electricity, no running water, no residents. "Who are you?" she whispered. He ignored the question, tilting his head slightly. "They never leave early. Not anymore." Lucy ran. The corridor collapsed into pitch black behind her, swallowing the torchlight. Doors slammed as she passed, one after the other, as though the rooms were waking. She reached the lobby, but the entrance door was gone, sealed by a solid wall wallpapered over. Footsteps approached behind her, slow, patient. Not one pair of steps, 2, 3, 4, eventually dozens, like every room in the hotel was emptying its occupants. Lucy ran to the stairs, climbing blindly, lungs burning. She pushed into the first open room she found and slammed the door shut behind her. Silence, then breathing, not hers. The room was pitch black except for her dying torch. She lifted it shakily. A mirror on the wall reflected her face, and another shape standing behind her. Lucy turned. Nothing was there. She faced the mirror again. This time, the figure was closer, tall, wearing a gray suit. Its hands rested on her shoulders in the reflection, though her shoulders felt nothing. The lights of her torch went out completely. When rescue teams found the hotel months later during a demolition survey, they discovered Lucy's equipment neatly arranged in room 214. Her torch was fully charged. Her camera battery was full, but Lucy was never found. On her final recording, a man's calm voice softly whispered, "Checkout isn't until dawn." The 3:12 a.m. train from London Bridge was known for one thing: only night shift workers and drunks ever used it. Maya, a nurse finishing a late shift, boarded the near-empty carriage expecting quiet. But the silence that night wasn't peaceful. Felt aware. Only one other passenger sat inside. a man in a long black coat, face shadowed by the brim of his hat. Maya tried not to stare, but something about him felt wrong, like he didn't belong among the living. The train doors shut. The carriage lights flickered once, twice. On the third flicker, the man shifted, not like a person adjusting posture, more like a puppet being set upright. The train moved. Maya opened her phone to message her sister, but the signal died instantly. Her reflection in the window looked normal at first, until she noticed something terrifying. The man was not reflected. His seat was empty in the reflection. Maya blinked hard, looked at him, looked at the reflection. Nothing changed. Her heart hammered, but she forced herself to stay calm. Trains at night were strange places. Maybe the lighting was playing tricks. Then he finally spoke. "You can see me." His voice was flat, hollow, like it came from a distance. Maya froze. She didn't answer. He continued, "Most passengers don't. They ride with me unaware. But you looked." The lights flickered again. This time the carriage was full. Shadowy figures sat in every seat, heads bowed, silent, unmoving. Their forms were blurred, as if the train carried lost outlines of people who were never supposed to be seen again. Maya stared in horror. "This is the last stop for everyone who boards alone," the man whispered. "Except you, if you listen carefully." Maya forced herself to breathe. "What do you want?" The man lifted his head. Where eyes should have been, there were only black, empty sockets. He smiled with a mouth that looked human only at the edges. "Don't get off at the next station," he said. The announcement chimed. Next stop, New Cross Gate. The train slowed. The shadowy passengers all turned their heads toward Maya, moving at the same exact speed, like synchronized dolls. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But the man in the black coat leaned forward slightly. "If you leave the train now," he murmured, "you'll never make it out of the station." The doors opened. The platform was empty, but the lights flickered violently. Something moved just beyond the yellow line, hands, too long, reaching upward, waiting. Maya stayed seated. The doors closed violently. The shadowy passengers faded away, one by one, until only the man remained. He tipped his hat. "You listened," he said. "You'll go home tonight." When the train reached Maya's actual stop, he was gone. The train was empty, quiet, normal. Maya began taking buses instead after that night. But sometimes, on her late shifts, she hears the faint sound of a train passing the hospital at 3:12 a.m. and a man's voice whispering, "Don't get off at the next station."